Hello and welcome to 6th grade art with Mr. Mariani. I'm Mr. Mariani, and because we're out of school for a little bit, I'm going to help walk you through some of these lessons. This is our first lesson, and our first lesson is going to be about 1-point perspective. So let's go ahead and write down that word. Get this paper together. So if we write down 1 point and then perspective. What this means is this 1 here tells us how many vanishing points there are going to be. So 1 is 1 vanishing point. And perspective, again, is how the artist sees something and then recreates it. So if we make a little eye here so that we understand that the perspective, again, is how an artist sees something and then recreates it, okay? So 1-point perspective, what you're gonna do is you're gonna start off, get a piece of paper and a pencil, and in the very center of your paper, you're going to make 1 vanishing point. This tiny dot is called a vanishing point. The vanishing point is where everything kind of goes into, and things that are close to the vanishing point are small, and things that move away from the vanishing point are larger. So the first thing I'm gonna have you do for the first part of the assignment, today's part of the assignment, is you're gonna start off by making some basic shapes. Now, you can I would use a ruler. If you don't have a ruler, just use the side of a paper or a book. So I'm gonna start off with just a square, or close to a square. It's a little more like a rectangle, but so I have a square right like that. And what I'm gonna do is, when you're using 1-point perspective, it means that everything has to go to this little dot, this vanishing point. Every corner especially. So I have 4 corners, which means I'm gonna have 4 lines. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start off and I'm going to make 1 line. I'm gonna make these very, very light. So light, because I'm gonna erase part of them. Go into the vanishing point, go into the vanishing point, and my last line, really, really light too, vanishing point. And the reason why is that's gonna tell us how to build our 3-dimensional shape using 1-point perspective. Then I'm gonna do something more complicated, like a circle. For circles don't have edges. So what happens with a circle is I put my ruler on the vanishing point, and then I just lay on top of that circle, very light. And then I put my ruler back on my vanishing point, and I go just to lay on the bottom of the vanishing point, go very light. That's another shape. I'm gonna put 2 more shapes at the bottom. So let's say, I don't know, this time I'm just gonna do a geometric shape that's not unnamed. We're just gonna make a shape with some different sides, some different angles, a shape that we probably have never seen before, okay? So this shape, again, it goes to the same principles, that it has to go to the vanishing point. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and put on the vanishing point, go to the corner, nice and light, vanishing point, corner, nice and light, vanishing point, corner, very nice and light, vanishing point, corner, very nice and light, vanishing point, corner, very nice and light. And I have 1 more corner, vanishing point, corner, very nice and light. Okay, you're gonna do 4 total shapes, but for this demonstration, I'm just gonna do 3 total shapes, okay? So once we have this, and we can see that everything's kind of going into the vanishing point, what we gotta do is we gotta build the sides of the shapes. And what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna go ahead and say, okay, so for my square, this is a vertical line. I need to make a parallel line, so I slide over, make a parallel line that goes between my 2 guidelines. Now I can trace over this diagonal line and over this diagonal line a little bit darker, and I have the side of my square. Then I have a horizontal line at the bottom, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to slide my ruler down till I touch this bottom corner of this one, and I'm going to trace my horizontal line. Now I have this diagonal line guideline right there. I can trace that as well. This line in the back right here, I'm not gonna worry about because I wouldn't be able to see it. So I'm just gonna erase that. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my pencil. Hopefully you're using a number 2 pencil, maybe a mechanical pencil. We've worked on a little bit of shading. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shade, and we talked about going in tight little circles. And the idea that those tight little circles help us get a little bit better of a blend. But if you wanted to, you could do hatching, which is lines back and forth, or cross hatching, which is the lines that go across from each other. So I'm slowly shading in the side here. And ta-da, got it. Then I'm gonna take my finger, I like to smear it, and bring a little bit towards the front. Same thing on this side. This time I'll do hatching. So hatching means back and forth. And cross hatching means going across those lines. So you've seen two different types of shading. I'm gonna blend it like that. Now the front of this would not have any shading on it, so I use my nice eraser. And I can go ahead and I can actually erase my guidelines. And I have a shaded three-dimensional shape. Okay, so I have a little bit of value. Value, again, light and dark. And I have this three-dimensional shape. So on this one, it's a little bit trickier on the circle. So do you see this curve right here? All I'm gonna do is make the same curve right there. And then I'm gonna trace my guideline and trace my guideline, and I'll have my shading like this. And that's all you would do for something that has just a basic curve like that, okay? You can erase your guidelines, you can go ahead. Now let's get to this complicated one. So let's try this. So I have a line that's kind of on a slant here, so I have to take and make the exact same line. Then I have a line that's tipped up like this, so I'm going to tip up. Then I have a line that's kind of horizontal, so I'm gonna slide over, go horizontal. And then I have another diagonal line. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come back, remember our guidelines. So use that line, use that line, use that line, use that line, and use that line. Now remember there's a line back there. I don't really need that line. I don't see that line. And I can erase my other guidelines. So I have this, I can shade this now too. The only thing that I want you guys to understand though is if I were to put those guidelines back on this one, if I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make another square, the closer it gets to the vanishing point, the smaller that square would be. So let's say that I put another square inside here. It would be smaller. This kind of looks like a rectangle, but that's okay. It's going to be smaller as it gets closer to the vanishing point. So as you're making shapes today, this is what I want you to do. Your assignment is, number one, I want you to write on the top of your paper, 1 point perspective. I want you to write plus value. Remember our value is our shading, our light and dark. So value, remember we talked about medium, darker, darkest, kind of those areas of making light to dark, okay? And I want you to have, draw 4 shapes. I want 3 shapes to be large and 1 small. And I want the small one to be somewhere near this vanishing point here, okay? So closer to this vanishing point, so that you understand as things go towards this vanishing point, they get smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's gonna be today's assignment. Now, tomorrow's assignment, you're gonna use the same idea, but it might be a little more fun. What you're gonna do is you're gonna start off by taking a vanishing point in the middle, and you're gonna be doing block lettering. So block lettering, if you don't know how to do that, what you do is, let's make a letter. So I'll use the letter P. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna trace around that letter, and then once inside that letter, and that's gonna give me a block letter. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the exact same thing I just did with my 3-dimensional shapes. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to put a line to the bottom, slide up, line to the corner, slide up, line right underneath the P, slide up. Now there's no corner here, so remember what we did? We put our vanishing point, our ruler on the vanishing point, and we went till we fell right on top of it. Perfect. And there's actually a corner inside there, nice and light. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna do the exact same thing that I did before. I'm gonna go ahead and make identical lines. We talked about the circle, so you have that curve there. This one up here, you don't have very much space to see, but there's a little bit in there like that, okay? Trace that guideline. And what you're going to do is you're going to do 4 different letters around, but remember to do one of those letters closer to the vanishing point, making it smaller, okay? So we have an assignment. The assignment first, today's assignment is this portion. Tomorrow, doing the letters. I think the letters are a little more fun. Let's do one more letter just so. So remember, if you don't know how to make block letters, you can draw your letter, trace around the letter without crossing over it, and then you can erase out that inside letter, and you have this nice block. Then I'm going to go from the corner of my letter to the vanishing point, corner of my letter to my vanishing point, corner of my letter to my vanishing point, corner of the letter to the vanishing point, corner to the vanishing point, corner of my letter to the vanishing point. And again, we talked about making parallel lines, lines that go the same direction. If they went on, they would not cross each other. It's one of those math terms that you think you're not going to use, and then you find all of a sudden it's very important that you know what it is. So this one, I have a little bit of a bottom that I didn't put on there, and there's my letter M. Okay? It's a little bit complicated. I know that there's some shapes that you might make some mistakes with, or some letters that you might make some mistakes with, but I want you to try your hardest. If you're having problems, please email me a picture of your letter, and I will email you back how to properly fix that. But I want you to try a little bit on your own first. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Remember, the only way you're going to learn this is by making some of those mistakes and self-correcting. If you're not willing to make mistakes on this assignment, you're probably not going to learn very much on this. So this is your assignment for Wednesday. This is your assignment for Tuesday, and I will see you guys back here on Thursday.